Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Often I get asked, what gear did you use to review this with? What did you compare it to? And what music were you using? And I always put down in the description a list of songs and gear that I use to do reviews. I've done several write-ups on my website. I've talked about it on live streams. And I've never done a video where I specifically talked about why I use the gear that I use and listen to the music I listen to. So I apologize for that. And so today's video is going to discuss that. Down in the description of every video, as mentioned, there is a description of gear that I use, or a list of gear that I use, and there's also music that is listed 21 songs. And that 21 songs is based on a posting that I did on my website about whether or not music impacts gear impressions. And yes, music does impact gear impressions. And yes, we all hear differently, and it's a scientific fact. We're all built different. Our ears are shaped different. And so that's going to impact what we hear. But also what we listen to also impacts it. And music is all around us. And it is endless when it comes to choices. Artists, genres, you name it. We could probably go for a whole year, each and every single day, listening to different artists and different genres of music, and still not hear each and every one that's available. It's just crazy how many artists are out in the world, and I love hearing all of the different things, okay? And I like hearing different types of genres of music. Some I like better than others. Same thing with artists. We each have our preferences, and we all have our favorites. Nothing wrong with that. So I am an audiophile, and as an audiophile, I seek an accurate reproduction of real life instruments and vocals. And I enjoy critiquing each listening moment and dissecting the music through the gear, and I listen for naturalism and realism. And naturalism is realism. It is a reproduced sound that matches everyday life audio. And that's what I'm seeking in reproduction of sound. So when I'm listening to music, I'm listening for naturalism and realism. And does the instruments sound lifelike? Does it sound like it would in the real world? And then the other aspect of it is I'm looking for a neutral sound. And what is neutral? Neutral is a reproduced sound that is free of colorization, that is not natural. Understand, neutral is not flat. Neutral has peaks and valleys, ups and downs, width, and just when you look at a neutral graph, it's going to go like this, okay? And why? Because in the real world, there is warmth. There is ups and downs, shimmers and glares and all kinds of things. And it becomes unnatural and non-neutral when those are elevated too much, or they're too dipped or too recessed. And so neutral is going to have peaks and valleys. Why? Because it's in association with natural. They play together. Neutral and natural go together. So we all listen to different types of music, and we all have preferences in artists and genres, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's not one that is better than the other, but it does impact your sound impressions of gear. And it also, there are certain genres of music that do certain things better. And in my opinion, certain certain types of music that should be used as a reference versus others. Now, I'm not saying that you can't use other genres of music for reference music. That's fine and dandy. But in my opinion, there are three types of music, three genres of music that should be the starting point for your reference music list. And that is jazz, classical, and acoustical music. You have to start with something natural and accurate and something neutral in order to set your benchmark. If you start with something that is very much elevated in either treble, mids, or bass, and that is very much the focus of it, then you're going to not have a straight benchmark. If it's elevated or boosted or focused on one area or the other, it's going to throw off your impressions going forward. Whereas if you have a natural and neutral starting point, you can add in your elevations and boosts and get an impression of whether or not it's doing it properly. So I believe that orchestral, jazz, and acoustical music are the best recorded for representing a natural and realistic reproduction of instruments and vocalists. And that's the reason why I use them. I believe that you are going to get the most natural tone and timbre and the most realistic reproduction of that. You're also going to get the best reproduction of stage layering and just an overall presentation of lifelikeness using classical, orchestral, jazz, and acoustical music genres. In every video, there is a list of 21 songs, and what I'm looking for when listening to them, you go to the website, it'll break it down by each song, and those songs are my final exam for the gear that I am reviewing, whether it be an IEM, headphone, DAC, amp, speaker. They all get those 21 songs, plus there's a couple bonus tracks on that list that are used as my reference, and I'm comparing them to my reference gear, and I'm listening for those specific things that are listed in that write-up, and it's the final test. Now, before that, I've been listening to all sorts of music, all sorts of genres of music and different artists and all kinds of things. And so my impressions are probably kind of already in place, but these 21 songs confirm it for me. If I'm going into that final listening session going, okay, this gear struggles with sibilance, or it has an issue with elevated bass, or this just doesn't have enough bass, or these have recessed mids or unnatural tone and timbre, something like that. And then I listen to that playlist, that confirms it. And it might change my mind a little bit, or it might just very heavily confirm it. And either way, that's the final say. That's the final judge. I listen to those, compare, and that's the confirmation that I need, and then I make my review. And there are so many variables that can go into the musical experience. And when we scrutinize gear, the most important thing that you need to look for, besides being natural and neutral, is the recording quality of the music. Is it recorded in a neutral and natural and accurate way? And is it recorded in a quality way without distortions and without all these other artifacts? Is it a quality recording? Is it well mixed, well mastered? And the reason for that is you need to be able to hear music in a quality reproduced way, or else it's going to distort things, it's going to throw things off, and you're not going to really truly understand how gear performs. And then the other thing that you really need is a source that is neutral, natural, and accurate. For me, I use the Mytek Liberty DAC 2 and the Headamp GSX Mini, also the Aueze LCD5 and the Aueze LCD2 Closed, and various other headphones, Rawson Rad Zero, CTM DaVinci 10s, and all kinds of other things. There's a list of reference gear. And I use those because I trust them and I understand that they are a neutral and natural reproduction of sound. I also use Audiovana Studio, and I use Amazon Audio and Tidal. And if you're curious about any of the playlists that I have on Tidal, there'll be a link. I do have a Tidal profile, which will allow you to go and listen to all the various music that I have in playlists. There's all kinds of hours, hundreds of hours of music that you'd be able to listen to and understand kind of what the honest audiophile likes. Also, there will be a link to that 21 song playlist. And when you listen to the music, and when I listen to it, as I've mentioned before, I'm looking for an accurate reproduction of natural and neutral. And the music is very important. And the gear is very important. Why? Because it's going to reveal the flaws and the exceptional capabilities of gear. And if you have gear that isn't natural and neutral, it's going to be influencing it in other ways. If it's a boosted bass or a boosted treble, you're going to always hear that in everything that you're listening to, and then it will really accentuate it or not accentuate it in certain gear. And so it's important to understand what your gear sounds like and what the tendencies are and what your music is and how quality of recording it is. As you go through my list, you're also probably going to notice that it doesn't have a lot of diversity in it. And as I said, I listen to all kinds of music. So check out the other playlists and you'll get an idea of what kind of music I enjoy. Why do I choose those songs though? I choose those songs mainly because they present a natural and realistic reproduction of instruments and vocalists. That playlist, that final playlist, gives the most important aspects of music in natural tone, timbre, accurate soundstage, width, depth, layering, and it reproduces accurate imaging and placement with excellent details and resolution. Some of those tracks don't do that well for a particular reason, and that's because I'm verifying that to make sure that the gear will show that, oh, hey, you know what, this song has a little bit of a flaw with resolution, or this one has this a little bit struggles with dynamic range or struggles with this or that. So not all of those songs are as quality as you would think. To understand if gear has good tone and timbre, the music must use acoustical instruments. Natural and accurate levels of reproduction is what an audiophile or myself seeks, and that isn't obtained by gear that is boosted, elevated, or enhanced. To truly understand the capabilities of gear, you need reference music that is reproduced in a natural and accurate way. I find that if gear can accurately portray a tonally correct piece of music, it can portray any musical piece accurately. Starting with a neutral and natural DAC and amp and an honest tonally correct track, you can determine if a headphone, earphone, or speaker is struggling in any way with its sonic reproduction. I do believe a DAC and an amp can make a difference. I do believe there are sonic differences in both, and you can hear them. Some are more subtle than others, some are more obvious. And yes, there is a differences between all of those. Now, can you do it, with all kinds of tests and stuff? Hey, you know what? As I said, we all hear different. It's all subjective. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. But to me, on a subjective level, I do hear differences. Some more subtle than others. And that also goes for cables. I do hear differences at times. Very, very minimal. But yes, there are differences between cables, DACs, amps, speakers, and all kinds of stuff. There are variables in everything, and music and audio reproduction is subjective, and we all hear differently. The truth of the matter is that it is the actual recording, what instruments and how they are recorded, that matters the most. Limiting your test material to one or a few genres will limit your impressions of gear. By expanding your test tracks list to cover a variety of genres, you will expand the opportunities to find out more capabilities or disabilities that your gear has. Being extremely familiar with test tracks and the source gear is important so that you can determine when something isn't being recorded and reproduced properly. It's very important to understand the gear that reviewers use and what music they listen to and why. And if they change out their source gear on a regular basis. I have a playlist, Get to Know Your Honest Audiophile. I highly recommend that you check out that playlist. Also, there's all kinds of other information on my website that'll help you to understand this. But folks, I just kind of wanted to touch on this real quickly and help you to understand where I'm coming from. Music is the most important, and music and source gear make a difference. And we all hear differently, and we're all built differently, and we all have preferences, but we all should have a reference. Also, your reference may be your preference, like it is for me, but at the same time, you need to know what you're seeking and why. And that's the most important thing to take away from this video, is that, hey, look, I'm not any special person here. I am not a professional sound engineer. I am not a producer. I'm not a musician or a vocalist at all. I've not done any scientific research, measurements, or in-depth testing of any kind. It's just my own listening and experience. And it's comparing and internet reading and research that has provided these thoughts and opinions. I have very limited real life experience with recording, mixing, and mastering gear. I do work as a sound technician at my local church, and I run a Allen and Heath QU24 soundboard with a bunch of other gear, which I won't bore you all with, on a regular basis. But I am not a professional in any way. I've been involved with music reproduction and soundboards since I was a teenager, and I'm just an amateur. I still am, and I'm still learning each and every day. But please take these thoughts and opinions and reasons as just that. They are my honest thoughts and opinions and reasons, and that's it. Music's the most important. It should have priority. This has been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding what we discussed today. Also, there's all kinds of information regarding how you contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel. All that kind of stuff is down below. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video. Like and subscribe and comment and all that kind of good stuff. Don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.